On the morning of Barbara Morgan's 75th birthday party, my daughter-in-law Vanessa stood in my kitchen, the kitchen I'd painted sunshine yellow with my late husband Robert 30 years ago, and said, "Ethel, we've already put down a deposit at Sunset Meadows. You're moving there in 3 days. I'm Ethel Marie Higgins. I'm 68 years old." I looked at her, standing there in her cream-colored cashmere sweater, her blonde hair pulled back in that perfect ponytail she always wore, her manicured nails drumming impatiently on my marble countertop. Behind her, I could see the bay through the window, the same view Robert and I had fallen in love with in 1985 when we bought this house. I said, "Okay." Then I decided to do something about it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I got here, to this moment, standing in my own kitchen, being told I was being evicted from the home I'd lived in for 40 years. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. 3 weeks earlier, the morning was like any other morning in my house. I woke up at 6:30, just as the early light started painting the bay in shades of pink and gold. I made my coffee, strong, the way Robert always made it, and sat on the back porch in the wicker chair he'd bought me for our 30th anniversary. The roses he'd planted were blooming, deep red against the weathered fence. Robert had been gone for 4 years, but some mornings I still expected to hear his footsteps coming down the stairs, still reached for 2 mugs instead of 1. He'd been a structural engineer, built half the bridges in Sussex County. Strong hands, strong heart. Until the heart attack took him on a Tuesday morning in March, right there in our bedroom, before the ambulance could even arrive. I was 64 when he died. Felt like 64 going on 90. Now I was 68, and most days I felt better than I had in those first dark months. I had my garden. I had my Tuesday morning Bible study at Bethel AME Church. I had my sister Dorothy, who called every Sunday without fail. I had my daughter Kenya, who lived in Portland but FaceTimed every week with my grandbabies. And I had this house, 847 Bayview Terrace, Henlopen Acres, Delaware. 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and a view of the water that never got old. That particular morning, I was transplanting some begonias when I heard the car. A silver SUV, a Lexus RX 350, I recognized it immediately, pulling into my driveway. It was only 7 in the morning. I stood up, brushing the dirt from my gardening gloves, and watched as 4 people got out. My son Darnell, his wife Vanessa, and their 2 children, Tyler 19 and Jasmine 16. But it was the suitcases that caught my attention. 6 of them. Large ones. "Mom!" Darnell came up this path with that smile he'd had since he was a boy, the one that used to get him out of trouble. He was 42 now, tall like his father, with Robert's same broad shoulders. But where Robert had been solid, grounded, Darnell had always been softer somehow, easier to sway. "Darnell," I pulled off my gloves. "This is early. I wasn't expecting you." "Surprise visit." He hugged me, but it felt perfunctory. "We've got some news." Vanessa came up behind him, not bothering to hide her impatience. She was 40, a corporate attorney at Morrison & Burke in Wilmington. I'd never quite warmed to her in the 7 years she'd been married to my son, and she'd made it clear the feeling was mutual. Everything about her was sharp. Sharp features, sharp clothes, sharp words. "Ethel," she nodded at me. "No hug, never a hug." "Vanessa, children." I smiled at Tyler and Jasmine. Tyler gave me a distracted wave, already on his phone. Jasmine at least came over and gave me a quick squeeze. "Hi, Grandma, you look pretty." "Thank you, sweetheart. What brings you all here so early?" Darnell exchanged a look with Vanessa. "Let's go inside and talk." That's when I knew something was wrong. We sat in my living room, the room where I'd hosted Robert's family every Thanksgiving for 30 years, where we'd celebrated birthdays and Christmases and graduations. Vanessa perched on the edge of my sofa like she was afraid it might contaminate her clothes. Darnell sat beside her, hands clasped between his knees. The children had already disappeared upstairs. "Mom," Darnell began, "Vanessa and I have been talking." I waited. "The thing is," he continued, glancing at his wife, "we're in a bit of a situation." Vanessa cut in, impatient as always. "What Darnell is trying to say is that my parents have sold their house in Rehoboth Beach. They need a place to stay while they look for something smaller. We thought they could stay with us, but our house is only 3 bedrooms, and with Tyler and Jasmine. I still waited, but my heart had started to beat a little faster. So we thought, Darnell Sassa said, his voice taking on that wheedling tone I remembered from his teenage years. Since you have this big house, and you're here all alone. You want your in-laws to stay here? I asked. Not exactly, Vanessa said. We want all of us to stay here, for a while, just until we figure things out. I looked at my son, really looked at him. For how long? A few weeks, Darnell said quickly. Maybe a month or 2. 2 months, I repeated it, letting the words hang in the air. You have 4 bedrooms, Mom, Darnell said. You only use 1. It just makes sense. What he didn't say, what hung in the air between us, was that he thought I owed him this. Because he was my son. Because this was too much house for one old woman. Because I was supposed to be grateful for any crumbs of attention he threw my way. Where would I sleep? I asked quietly. Vanessa answered before Darnell could. We thought you could take the first-floor study. We can move the desk out, put in a bed. That way you won't have to deal with the stairs. At your age, that's really safer anyway. At your age, the first cut, subtle as a paper cut but stinging just the same. The study, I repeated. The study where Robert had spent his evenings, working on his bridge designs, where his drafting table still sat, where I could still sometimes smell his cologne if I closed my eyes. Just temporarily, Mom, Darnell said. You understand, right? Family helps family. I looked at my son, at the wife who'd never liked me, at the suitcases already stacked in my hallway, and I understood that this wasn't a request. This was a fait accompli. They'd already made the decision. They were just informing me. All right, I said softly, if that's what you need. Vanessa's expression shifted just slightly. She'd expected a fight. The fact that I'd given in so easily seemed to make her suspicious. But Darnell just looked relieved. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. He stood up, already pulling out his phone. Let me start bringing the bags in. The next week was like watching my home being invaded, one piece at a time. Vanessa's parents, Barbara and Richard Morgan, arrived 2 days later. Barbara was 75, a short, plump woman with iron-gray hair set in careful waves and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Richard was 78, tall and thin with military bearing. He'd been a colonel in the army before he retired. They were polite enough to my face, but I heard the way Barbara talked when she thought I wasn't listening. It's so dated, she said to Vanessa as they walked through my kitchen. That yellow is absolutely hideous. And look at these countertops. Are these from the 80s? Early 90s, Vanessa replied. Don't worry, Mom. We'll update everything once we're properly settled. I was in the hallway, carrying my bedding to the first-floor study, and I froze at those words. Once we're properly settled. Not once Ethel lets us settle in. Not with Ethel's permission. Just settled. Like this was already their house. The master bedroom, my bedroom, the room I'd shared with Robert for 33 years, went to Darnell and Vanessa. The second bedroom went to Barbara and Richard. Tyler and Jasmine took the third and fourth bedrooms, and I was in the study, sleeping on a twin bed that Vanessa had ordered from Amazon, surrounded by moving boxes full of my displaced belongings, because there was no room for them anywhere else. My routine was dismantled piece by piece. I'd always had my coffee at 6:30, sitting on the back porch, but now Vanessa had claimed that time for her morning yoga. The porch has the best light, she explained. You understand, don't you, Ethel? I'd always made a proper breakfast, grits, eggs, turkey sausage, sometimes salmon croquettes on Sundays. But Vanessa was health conscious. She filled my refrigerator with egg whites and kale and almond milk, pushing my groceries to the back. That bacon is full of nitrates, she said, throwing away the package I'd just bought. At your age, you need to watch your cholesterol. At your age, there it was again. My record collection, B.B. King, Aretha Franklin, Sam Cooke, Mahalia Jackson, albums I'd collected since I was a teenager, disappeared from the living room. We put them in the garage, Vanessa said when I asked. They were taking up so much space and nobody listens to records anymore. I listen to records, I said. There's Spotify now, Ethel. It's much more convenient. Tyler can show you how to use it. My photo albums, the ones I'd carefully maintained for 40 years, documenting every birthday, every holiday, every milestone, they ended up in boxes in the garage too. We need the shelf space, Vanessa explained. Besides, you should really get those digitized. That's what everyone does now. The yellow kitchen walls? Vanessa repainted them gray with mint green accents while I was at my Tuesday Bible study. I came home to the smell of fresh paint and my sunshine yellow erased forever. It's so much more modern, Barbara cooed, standing back to admire the work. Don't you think so, Ethel? I looked at the walls, at the color I'd chosen with Robert, at the place where we'd written our initials in permanent marker before the first coat of yellow went up, now buried under gray. It's different, I managed to say. Change is good, Richard said, clapping me on the shoulder. Can't stay stuck in the past forever. But I wasn't stuck in the past. I was being erased from the present. 2 weeks in and I barely recognized my own home. Or my place in it. Breakfast was served at 8 now, not 6:30. I wasn't asked what I wanted to eat. Vanessa simply made her protein smoothies and egg white omelets and set one in front of me. Drink up, she'd say. You need your nutrition. I missed my grits. I missed my turkey sausage. I missed my coffee drunk in peace while watching the sun rise over the bay. Dinner was at 6:30 sharp. We have a schedule, Vanessa explained. It's important for the children to have structure. The children. Tyler was 19, a sophomore at Delaware State University. He'd moved back home to save money, which apparently meant playing video games in his room until 2 in the morning. Jasmine was 16, glued to her phone, barely looking up when anyone spoke to her. But I noticed things. I've always been observant. Robert used to joke that I should have been a detective instead of a homemaker. And what I noticed was that nobody looked at me anymore. Not really. I was furniture. Wallpaper. An inconvenience to be worked around. When Darnell and Vanessa had friends over for dinner, I wasn't invited to join. We thought you'd be more comfortable eating in your room, Vanessa said. It's so noisy with everyone talking, and at your age— I'm 68, I interrupted. Not 98. I can handle dinner conversation. She smiled that sharp smile. Of course you can. I just thought you'd prefer some quiet time. What she meant was, you don't fit with our friends. You're an embarrassment. The final straw came 3 weeks after they'd moved in. I'd gone to the grocery store, driving my own car, spending my own money, buying my own food because I was tired of protein smoothies and kale salads. I bought everything for Sunday dinner the way I used to make it. A whole chicken, collard greens, sweet potatoes, cornbread mix, peach cobbler ingredients. I was going to make it a proper meal, the kind Robert had loved, the kind my mother had taught me to make, the kind that made a house feel like a home. I came back to find the locks changed. I stood there on my own front porch, grocery bags in hand, key refusing to turn in the lock that I'd opened 1,000 times before. For a moment I thought I'd lost my mind. But no, the lock was different. Shiny and new where the old one had been brass and tarnished. I rang the doorbell. Vanessa answered, surprised to see me. Oh, Ethel, you're back? The lock is different, I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. Yes, well, we had a security concern. Someone tried to break into the Hendersons' house down the street. We thought it was best to upgrade. This is my house, I said slowly. You changed the locks on my house without telling me. We were going to give you a new key, Vanessa said, taking the bags from my hands. Don't be so dramatic. Come in, come in. I stepped into my own home, and I had to be invited in. That night, lying in my narrow twin bed in what used to be Robert's study, I made a decision. I couldn't live like this. I wouldn't live like this, but I needed to be smart about it. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. So I started paying attention, really paying attention. The next morning, Sunday, I woke up earlier than usual, 5 a.m., while the house was still quiet. I slipped out of my room and went to the kitchen, moving quietly in my slippers. I wasn't snooping. Not exactly. I was just observing my own home. There were papers on the kitchen table, documents that Darnell had been looking at the night before. I shouldn't have looked, but something made me pause. The first document was a rental agreement, not for an apartment or a house, for a storage unit. Size, 10 by 20. Monthly rate, $247. Term, 6 months, starting 3 weeks ago, right when they'd moved in. What did they need a storage unit for? The second document made my blood run cold. It was a brochure for Sunset Meadows Senior Living Community. But Senior Living Community was just a nice way of saying nursing home, and not a nice one. I'd heard about Sunset Meadows. It was the cheapest facility in the area, with a reputation for neglect and understaffing. The local paper had done an exposé on it just last year. Someone, Vanessa's handwriting, I recognized it, had circled the pricing. $4,850 per month for a shared room. And in the margin she'd written, deposit $9,700. Paid. Paid. My hands started to shake as I realized what I was looking at. They weren't staying here temporarily. They were moving in permanently, and I was being moved out. To Sunset Meadows. I heard footsteps on the stairs and quickly put the papers back exactly as I'd found them. By the time Vanessa entered the kitchen, I was at the coffee maker, calm as could be. "You're up early," she said, surprised. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, pouring my coffee. "Getting old, I guess." She didn't respond to that, just started preparing her smoothie. But I noticed the way she glanced at the papers on the table, checking to make sure they were still there. I took my coffee to my room and sat on the edge of my twin bed, thinking. They'd paid the deposit, $9,700. That wasn't a casual expense. That was a commitment. They were serious. I should have felt devastated, betrayed, lost. Instead, I felt something else entirely, something sharp and clear and cold. I felt angry, not the hot, explosive anger that makes you scream and throw things, the cold, calculating anger that makes you think, that makes you plan. Because here's what Darnell and Vanessa didn't know, what nobody knew except my lawyer and my accountant. I wasn't the helpless old woman they thought I was. Robert had been a successful engineer, very successful, and when he died, he left everything to me. The house paid off, his retirement accounts, his life insurance, his investments. And the cherry on top, he'd been a silent partner in a construction company that had gone public 3 years before he died. Those shares were now worth, well, let's just say I wasn't worried about money, but I'd kept quiet about it. Partly because Robert had been a private man and I'd respected that. Partly because I'd grown up in a time when women didn't talk about money, especially black women who'd been raised to be humble and not draw attention. And partly because I'd wanted to see what my children would do. Would they take care of me out of love? Or would they only show up if they thought there was something in it for them? I was getting my answer now. I looked at the photo of Robert on my makeshift nightstand. He was smiling, that big warm smile that had first made me fall in love with him 50 years ago. "I know what you'd say," I whispered to the photo. "You'd tell me to fight. You'd tell me this is my fortress, and I don't give up the fortress without a battle." Robert had always been a fighter. He'd fought to get his engineering degree when black men weren't supposed to be engineers. He'd fought to get good jobs when those jobs went to white men with half his qualifications. He'd fought to buy this house in this neighborhood when the realtor had tried to steer us to more appropriate areas. And he'd won every fight. Now it was my turn. I pulled out my cell phone. Yes, I had a cell phone. I wasn't completely stuck in the past. And scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Dorothy Watson. Dorothy was my oldest friend, 70 years old, a former high school English teacher who was sharper than most people half her age. We'd been friends since we were both young mothers, attending the same church, raising our kids together. She lived in Wilmington now, in a nice assisted living facility. A real one, not a warehouse like Sunset Meadows. But Dorothy hadn't always lived there. A year ago, her daughter had put her in Sunset Meadows after Dorothy had a minor stroke. Dorothy had spent exactly 3 weeks there before she figured out how to get herself out and into somewhere better. If anyone could help me, it was Dorothy. I texted her. "Need to talk. Important. Can you call?" The reply came back almost immediately. "Calling now." Her voice was warm when she answered. "Ethel? What's going on, honey? It's 5:30 in the morning. I know. I'm sorry, but I need help. Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about Darnell and Vanessa moving in, about the slow takeover of my house, about the brochure for Sunset Meadows, about the paid deposit. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then Dorothy said, "Those motherless children." Coming from Dorothy, former English teacher and church deacon, that was practically profanity. "I need to know," I said. "The house, it's still in my name, right? They can't just take it?" "Did you sign anything? Any papers transferring ownership?" "No. Darnell keeps saying we need to do that. Something about gift tax, but we never have." "Then it's yours," Dorothy said firmly. "Your house, your name on the deed. Your decision, what happens to it? So if I wanted to, I don't know, sell it? Another silence. Then, Ethel Marie Higgins, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? I'm thinking, I said slowly, that they've decided I don't belong in my own home. They've decided to put me in Sunset Meadows so they can live here. They've made these decisions without asking me, without respecting me, without even having the decency to tell me to my face. Go on. So I'm thinking, if they want to live here so badly, they can buy their own house, because this one isn't going to be available. Dorothy laughed, a rich, full laugh that made me smile despite everything. Oh, honey, I knew there was a reason we've been friends for 45 years. You've got steel in your spine after all. I don't know if I can actually do this, I admitted. It's my son, my grandchildren. Your son who's letting his wife throw you out of your own home. Dorothy's voice turned serious. Ethel, I love you, but you need to hear this. Family doesn't treat family this way. What they're doing to you, it's called elder abuse. It's wrong. And you don't owe them anything, certainly not your home and your dignity. I thought about that. Elder abuse. Such clinical words for the way I'd been feeling. Invisible, unimportant, in the way. I have someone you need to meet, Dorothy said. My brother Isaac. He's a real estate agent. Was, anyway. He's retired now, but he still has connections. He helped me get out of Sunset Meadows and into Spring Hill Manor. If anyone can help you, it's him. I don't know. Ethel. Dorothy's voice was gentle but firm. You called me for a reason. You know what you need to do. Now you just need the courage to do it. And maybe a little help from someone who knows the system. Will you at least talk to Isaac? I looked around my tiny room, at the boxes full of my displaced life, at the photo of Robert. What would he want me to do? I knew the answer. He'd want me to fight. Yes, I said. I'll talk to him. Good. I'll call him today and explain the situation. He'll reach out to you. In the meantime, Ethel, don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. And start documenting everything. Write down every conversation, every incident, every time they make you feel small. You're going to need it. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you for finally standing up for yourself. About damn time. After we hung up, I sat in the dim light of early morning and felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Dorothy's brother Isaac called me 2 days later, on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in my room pretending to nap. Vanessa had made it clear that quiet time from 2 to 4 was when she did her work-from-home calls, and I was expected to stay out of the way. Mrs. Higgins, this is Isaac Miller, Dorothy's brother. She told me about your situation. His voice was warm, professional, with the kind of confidence that comes from decades of experience. I liked him immediately. Please, call me Ethel. And yes, I need help, but I'm not even sure what kind of help I need. Why don't we start with the basics, Isaac said. The house is in your name, correct? No joint ownership, no transfer on death deed, nothing like that? Just my name. Ethel Marie Higgins. Robert left everything to me outright. Good. And you haven't signed any powers of attorney giving your son or daughter-in-law authority over your finances or property? No. They've asked, but I've put them off. Excellent. I could hear the smile in his voice. Then legally, you're in a strong position. The house is yours to do with as you please, including selling it if that's what you decide. But Darnell lives here now, I said, lowering my voice even though I was behind a closed door. With his whole family. Where would they go? That's not your problem to solve, Ethel. They're adults. They made the decision to move into your home without a proper agreement. And from what Dorothy tells me, they're planning to move you out against your will. To Sunset Meadows, I confirmed. They've already paid the deposit, $9,700. Isaac was quiet for a moment. That's not a small amount. They're serious about this. I know. So the question is, what do you want? If you could wave a magic wand and have things be exactly how you want them, what would that look like? I thought about it. What did I want? I want my home back, I said slowly. I want to wake up in my own bedroom and make my own breakfast and sit on my own porch without asking permission. I want to feel like I matter, like I'm not just some inconvenient old woman taking up space. Then that's what we'll make happen, Isaac said. But Ethel, I need to be honest with you. If we go down this road, if we decide to sell the house, It's going to get ugly. Your son isn't going to take this well. Your daughter-in-law even less so. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the last 3 weeks. The way Vanessa had erased my yellow kitchen. The way Darnell avoided my eyes when she gave orders. The way I'd been pushed into a corner of my own life. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. All right then, here's what we're going to do. This week, I need you to gather documentation. The deed to the house. Do you know where that is? In my safe deposit box at First National Bank. Perfect. You'll need to get that. Also, any property tax records, utility bills, anything that proves this is your house and you're the one who's been maintaining it. Can you do that without arousing suspicion? I think so. I still go to the bank on Thursdays. That's when my Social Security gets deposited. Good. Next, I'm going to need you to do something that might feel uncomfortable. I need you to search the house. Look for any documents they might have left lying around. Financial records, rental agreements, anything that might tell us what their real plans are. You mean snoop? I mean gather evidence in your own home, Isaac corrected gently. Ethel, they're planning to institutionalize you. Whatever you find, it's not snooping, it's protecting yourself. He was right. I knew he was right. But 40 years of being a good woman who minded her own business and didn't go through people's things made it hard. I'll try, I said. That's all I ask. One more thing. Have you told anyone else about this? Your daughter in Oregon, maybe? Kenya? No, I didn't want to worry her. She's got her own life, her own family. Ethel. Isaac's voice was firm but kind. You need to tell her. She's your daughter. She has a right to know what's happening to you. And frankly, you might need her support before this is over. You're right, I admitted. I'll call her. Good. I'll check in with you in a few days. In the meantime, document everything. Keep a journal if you can, somewhere they won't find it. Write down every conversation, every incident. Dates, times, what was said. Can you do that? Yes, I said, feeling more certain now. Yes, I can do that. After we hung up, I sat there for a long moment thinking. Then I pulled out an old notebook from one of my boxes, a journal Robert had given me years ago that I'd never used. I opened it to the first page and wrote, Tuesday, September 12th, 2023, day 21 of occupation. Then I smiled at my own word choice. Occupation. Like they were an invading army. But that's what it felt like, wasn't it? I started writing everything I could remember from the past 3 weeks. Every comment, every change, every small cruelty. By the time I was done, my hand ached and I'd filled 7 pages. 7 pages of evidence. Thursday morning, I told Vanessa I was going to the bank. Again? She looked up from her laptop at the kitchen table, my kitchen table. You just went last week. I need to check on something in my safe deposit box, I said calmly. I'll be back in an hour or so. She shrugged, already back to her screen. Fine, but we're having the painters come this afternoon to look at the exterior. The house needs a fresh coat. I was thinking a nice colonial blue. This is a beach house, I said. It's supposed to be white with gray trim. That's so dated, Ethel. Blue is very on trend right now. I didn't argue. There was no point. Instead, I got my purse and my car keys. At least she hadn't tried to take those away from me yet, and drove to First National Bank on Savannah Road. Gloria Henderson was working the desk, a pleasant woman in her 50s who'd been handling my accounts for years. Mrs. Higgins, how lovely to see you. How are you holding up? I'm managing, Gloria. I need to access my safe deposit box, please. Of course. She led me to the vault, and I opened box number 847. I'd always liked that the number matched my house number. Inside was everything important. The deed to the house, our marriage certificate, Robert's death certificate, insurance policies, his will, my will, birth certificates. I pulled out the deed and made a copy on the bank's machine. Then I looked at the other documents, thinking. Isaac had said to gather evidence, to document everything. On impulse, I opened my purse and took out my phone. I photographed every document in that box. The deed showing 847 Bayview Terrace was in my name only. Robert's will leaving everything to me. My own will leaving everything split equally between Darnell and Kenya. The life insurance policy declaration page showing a death benefit of $850,000 paid to Ethel Marie Higgins on April 3, 2019. When I was done, I locked the box and went to speak with Thomas Chen, The bank manager. Thomas, I need to ask you something. If someone wanted to access my accounts, say with a power of attorney, would you notify me? Thomas frowned. Of course. Why do you ask? Has someone been trying to access your accounts? Not yet, I said. But I want to make sure that if anyone tries, I know about it immediately. Can you put a note on my accounts? Absolutely. I'll flag them right now. Dual authorization required for any changes, withdrawals over $500, or account access by anyone other than you. You'll receive a text alert for any activity. Thank you, Thomas. As I drove home, I felt both empowered and frightened. I was taking steps to protect myself, but each step made the situation more real. This wasn't just a bad dream I could wake up from. This was actually happening. When I got home, the house was empty. A note on the kitchen counter said, "Taken Barbara to doctor's appointment. Back by 3. I looked at that note for a long moment. Then I looked at the clock. It was 10:47 a.m. I had over 4 hours. Time to find out exactly what Darnell and Vanessa were planning. I started in the master bedroom. My bedroom. Vanessa had completely redecorated, of course. The quilt my grandmother had made was gone, replaced with a white duvet from Pottery Barn. Robert's nightstand had been replaced with a modern glass one. My jewelry box was nowhere to be seen. I opened the closet. All of Vanessa's clothes, all of Darnell's. My clothes had been boxed up, and, I discovered, put in the garage. In the back of the closet, I found a file box. Inside were bank statements. Not for accounts I recognized. I pulled them out and started reading. The statements were for Capital One Bank, accounts in both Darnell and Vanessa's names. The first one showed a balance of $43,287.52 as of August 31st, 2023. The second account showed $78,941.15. I did the math in my head. That was over $122,000. Where had that money come from? I photographed every statement with my phone, my hands shaking slightly. Then I kept looking. Behind the bank statements was a folder labeled Real Estate. Inside were documents I didn't understand at first. Property listings, mortgage pre-approval letters, assessments. Then I found it. A document from Morrison and Burke Real Estate Management, dated August 15, 2023, 2 weeks before they'd moved in with me. It was a rental agreement for 847 Bayview Terrace, Henlopen Acres, but I wasn't listed as the landlord. Darnell was. The agreement was between Darnell Higgins and Barbara and Richard Morgan. Rental amount $2,800 per month. Term 24 months. Security deposit $5,600. First and last month's rent $5,600. Total paid $11,200. My hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped the papers. Darnell had rented my house to his in-laws. My house. He'd collected over $11,000 for a property he didn't own. I photographed everything, forcing myself to stay calm, to be methodical. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it and moved to the next location, Darnell's home office, the room that used to be the guest bedroom. He'd set up a desk with a computer, files stacked neatly on shelves. I went through them quickly, ears alert for the sound of a car in the driveway. More bank statements, more accounts I didn't recognize, and then a letter from Sunset Meadows dated September 1st, 2023. Not a brochure this time, but an acceptance letter. Dear Mr. Higgins, we are pleased to confirm acceptance of your application for residency for Ethel Marie Higgins, DOB March 7, 1955, at our facility. Per our conversation, we have reserved a semi-private room in our memory care unit. Memory care unit. I had to read that twice to make sure I understood. They weren't just planning to put me in Sunset Meadows. They were planning to put me in the memory care unit, the wing for patients with dementia and Alzheimer's. I didn't have dementia. I didn't have Alzheimer's. I was as sharp as I'd ever been. But if they put me in memory care, who would believe me if I protested? Who would listen to the confused old woman who didn't even know where she was? The letter continued. The monthly rate for memory care is $7,850, with a non-refundable deposit of $15,700, first and last month's rent. We have received your deposit and are holding the room for occupancy beginning October 1st, 2023. October 1st. That was in 2.5 weeks. I photographed the letter, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Not yet. I could cry later. Right now, I needed to finish this. The last document I found made everything crystal clear. It was a printout of an email exchange between Vanessa and someone named Dr. Patricia Marlowe at Delaware Psychiatric Associates. Dr. Marlowe, thank you for agreeing to evaluate my mother-in-law, Ethel Higgins, 68F. As discussed, she has been exhibiting signs of cognitive decline, memory lapses, confusion about dates, difficulty managing her finances. Her late husband handled everything, and since his death 4 years ago, she has become increasingly unable to care for herself or her property. We are concerned for her safety and believe she requires 24-hour care in a memory care facility. For the court petition for guardianship, we will need your professional assessment confirming her diminished capacity. Please let me know when you can see her. We can bring her to your office under the pretext of a routine checkup. Best regards, Vanessa Higgins, Esquire. The response from Dr. Marlowe. Vanessa, I can see Mrs. Higgins next Wednesday, September 20th at 2 p.m. As we discussed, my evaluation will be thorough and objective. If she does indeed show signs of dementia or diminished capacity, I will document that for your guardianship petition. My fee is $2,500 for the evaluation and written report. Dr. Marlowe. I stood there in Darnell's office, phone in hand, and I finally understood the full scope of what they were doing. They weren't just moving me out. They were having me declared incompetent. They were going to take guardianship, control of me, my money, my property, my entire life. They were going to lock me in a memory care unit where no one would believe anything I said. And then they would have complete control of my house, my assets, everything Robert and I had built. And they'd already collected over $11,000 in rent from Barbara and Richard for a house they didn't own. How much of my money had they already stolen? How much more were they planning to take? I looked at the date on the email. The appointment with Dr. Marlowe was in 8 days. I had 8 days to stop this. I called Isaac Miller the moment I got back to my room. They're planning to have me declared incompetent, I said without preamble. They've set up an appointment with a psychiatrist for next Wednesday. They're going to petition for guardianship. Slow down, Ethel. Tell me everything. I did. I told him about the bank accounts, the rental agreement, the Sunset Meadows letter, the email exchange. I sent him all the photos I'd taken. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Ethel, he finally said, what they're doing. This isn't just elder abuse. This is fraud. They've collected money for renting a property they don't own. They're planning to have you falsely declared incompetent to gain control of your assets. This is criminal. What do I do? First, you're not going to that appointment on Wednesday. Tell them you're sick. Tell them anything, but don't go. Once you're in that doctor's office, they control the narrative. Okay. Second, I'm going to connect you with someone. A lawyer friend of mine, Patricia Williams. She specializes in elder law and she's a pit bull. You're going to need someone like that. I thought you were helping me sell the house. Oh, we're still going to do that, Isaac said, and I could hear the steel in his voice. But this is bigger than just selling a house now. This is about protecting you from people who are actively trying to steal your life. Patricia will help with that side of things. I'll help with the real estate side. Between the two of us, we're going to make sure you come out of this okay. Better than okay. Isaac, thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and you're living peacefully in a home where people actually respect you. Now, do you have somewhere safe to keep all this evidence? My safe deposit box. Good. Get copies of everything to the bank tomorrow. And Ethel, one more thing. What? Call your daughter, today, right now. She needs to know what her brother is doing. He was right. I'd been putting it off because I didn't want to worry Kenya, didn't want to admit that things had gotten this bad. But she deserved to know. After I hung up with Isaac, I video called Kenya. It was early afternoon in Portland, and she answered on the second ring, her face filling the screen. She had Robert's eyes, warm and kind. Mom, I wasn't expecting to hear from you today. Is everything... She stopped, looking at my face. What's wrong? And just like that, looking at my daughter's concerned face, I started to cry. Not the quiet, dignified tears I'd been holding back for weeks. Real ugly crying that made my whole body shake. Mom, what is it? Are you sick? It's Darnell, I managed to say. It's Darnell and Vanessa. They're trying to take everything. What? Slow down. Tell me what's happening. So I did. I told her everything, from the moment they'd shown up with their suitcases to the email I'd found that morning. I watched her face go from concern to shock to pure fury. That son of a... She caught herself. I'm booking a flight. I'm coming home. Kenya, no, you don't have to. Mom, her voice was firm. I'm coming home. You're not dealing with this alone. I'll be there this weekend. Do not go to that doctor's appointment. Do not sign anything. And don't let them know I'm coming. I want to see the looks on their faces when I walk in that door. Okay, I said, feeling relief wash over me. Okay. I love you, Mom. We're going to fix this. After we hung up, I lay down on my twin bed and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel helpless. I felt like I had an army forming around me. Dorothy, Isaac, Patricia Williams, Kenya, and most importantly, I had the truth. Patricia Williams met me at a coffee shop in Lewis on Friday morning. I'd told Vanessa I was meeting friends from church, which wasn't entirely a lie since I'd asked Dorothy to join us for cover. Patricia was everything Isaac had promised. Mid-50s, black woman with natural hair styled in an elegant twist, wearing a sharp navy suit and carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it had seen a lot of courtroom battles. Mrs. Higgins, she shook my hand firmly. I've reviewed the documents you sent Isaac. I want to be very clear with you. What your son and daughter-in-law are doing is illegal. Collecting rent on a property they don't own is fraud. Planning to have you falsely declared incompetent for financial gain is fraud and elder abuse. You would have grounds to press criminal charges. I don't want Darnell to go to jail, I said quickly. He's my son. Patricia's expression softened slightly. I understand, and that's your choice. But you need to understand the full scope of what's happening so you can make informed decisions. From what I can see, they've likely stolen somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 from you through that rental arrangement alone. That's not counting whatever else they might have taken. The number made me feel sick. How? I checked my accounts. I would have noticed, did Robert have any business accounts? Investment accounts? Anything that might have gone to Darnell after his death with the understanding he'd manage them for you? I thought back. There was a business account. Robert's construction company partnership. Darnell was supposed to handle the distributions and make sure I got my share each quarter. When's the last time you received a distribution? I tried to remember. It's been... I'm not sure. Maybe 8 months? Darnell said the company was restructuring, that the payments would resume soon. Patricia and Isaac exchanged a look. We need to look into that, Patricia said, making a note. But here's the immediate concern. That appointment on Wednesday. You're not going. I'll tell them I'm sick. Good. In the meantime, I'm going to file an emergency petition with the court. We're going to beat them to the punch. Instead of them petitioning for guardianship over you, we're going to get a restraining order preventing them from taking any action regarding your property or person without court approval. It's unusual, but given the evidence of fraud, I think we can get it. What will that do? It'll freeze them in place, Isaac explained. They won't be able to move forward with their plans while we sort this out, and it'll give us time to get the house sold. You found a buyer? I looked at him in surprise. Isaac smiled. I found 3 potential buyers. But there's one I think you're going to like. His name is James Crawford. He's looking for a property exactly like yours. Bayfront, established neighborhood, good bones. And when I explained your situation, that you'd need a place to stay during the transition, he made an interesting offer. What kind of offer? He's willing to buy the house at 20% above market value. Current market value is about $485,000. He's offering $582,000. And in exchange for that premium, he wants you to help him understand the property, the quirks, the history, what makes it special. He's also willing to let you stay in the house for up to 3 months rent-free while he builds a guest house on the property for you to live in. Lifetime residency, written into the deed. I stared at him. That's too generous. He can afford it, Isaac said. James made his money in the restaurant business, sold his company last year for a substantial amount. He's looking for a place to retire, somewhere with meaning. He specifically wants a house with history, with a story. When I told him about you and Robert, about what this house means to you, he said it sounded perfect. I'd get to stay? In your own house, on your own property. Just in a new building designed specifically for you. Accessible, modern, everything you'd need. And James would be in the main house, which he'd restore respectfully. He wants to keep Robert's rose garden, by the way. He's a gardener himself. I felt tears prickling my eyes again. When can I meet him? How about Monday? We could do it at my office, nice and private. You can talk, see if you're comfortable with him. If you are, we can move forward quickly. I'd like to have the papers signed before that Wednesday appointment. And if I sign, if we sell the house, what happens to Darnell and Vanessa? Patricia answered that one. They'll have to leave. As soon as the deed transfers, they're trespassing. We'll give them reasonable notice, say 72 hours to vacate. But Ethel, you need to be prepared. They're not going to go quietly. This is going to get ugly. I know, I said quietly. But I'm ready. Dorothy, who'd been sitting quietly through all this, reached over and squeezed my hand. Damn right you're ready. Monday came faster than I expected. I met James Crawford at Isaac's office, a pleasant space in a converted house in downtown Lewis with a view of the canal. James was not what I expected. Instead of the slick businessman I'd imagined, he was a gentle-looking man in his early 60s, wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, with kind eyes and a warm smile. He reminded me a little bit of Robert. Mrs. Higgins. He stood when I entered and shook my hand. It's an honor to meet you. Isaac has told me about your house, and I've driven by it. It's beautiful. Thank you. My late husband and I bought it in 1985. Isaac mentioned you'd lived there almost 40 years. That's rare these days. Houses like that, they hold memories. They're not just structures. They're homes in the truest sense. We talked for an hour, not about money or contracts, but about the house, about Robert and his roses, about the way the light hit the bay in the morning, about the Thanksgivings and Christmases and quiet Sunday mornings. James listened to every word, asking questions, genuinely interested. I lost my wife 3 years ago, he told me. Cancer. We'd always talked about retiring by the water, but we never got the chance. When Isaac told me about your property, about your situation, it felt like, I don't know, like maybe I could help give both of us a second chance. You really want me to stay? I asked. Even after you own it? Most people would want the whole property to themselves. James smiled. Mrs. Higgins, I'm 62 years old and I have more money than I know what to do with. But what I don't have is family nearby, or connection to a place. You'd be doing me a favor. I'd like to know that the house is going to someone who understands its history. And selfishly, I'd love to have a neighbor who can tell me stories about this place, about the community. If you're comfortable with that. I looked at this kind man offering me a lifeline, and I made my decision. When can we sign the papers? Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. The day I was supposed to go to Dr. Marlowe's office and be declared incompetent. Instead, I woke up at 6 a.m. in my twin bed, put on my best burgundy suit, the one I'd worn to Robert's funeral, and waited. The papers had been signed 2 days ago. The deed was recorded yesterday. As of 9:47 a.m. on Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, 847 Bayview Terrace no longer belonged to me. It belonged to James Crawford, and today, James, Isaac, Patricia, and I were going to tell my family. But first, I had to get through the morning without arousing suspicion. I made coffee, in my own kitchen, maybe for the last time, and waited for Vanessa to appear. She came down at 7:30, already dressed for the day in a crisp white blouse and black slacks. Good morning, Ethel. Don't forget, we need to leave for your doctor's appointment at 1:30. About that, I said calmly, taking a sip of my coffee. I'm not feeling well. I think I should reschedule. Her eyes narrowed. You're not feeling well. My stomach's been upset all morning. Probably something I ate. I don't think I should go out. Ethel. Her voice took on that edge I'd come to know so well. This appointment is important. Dr. Marlowe is a very busy woman. We can't just reschedule because you have an upset stomach. I'm 68 years old, I said mildly. If I say I don't feel well enough to go to the doctor, then I don't feel well enough to go to the doctor. We stared at each other across my yellow, no gray, kitchen. She was trying to figure out if I knew something. I kept my face pleasant and neutral. Fine, she finally said. I'll call and reschedule. But Ethel, this is important. For your health. We need to make sure you're, she paused delicately, managing okay. Of course, I said, yes, he said. I appreciate your concern. She left the kitchen, already pulling out her phone. I heard her in the hallway. Dr. Marlowe? Yes, this is Vanessa Higgins. I need to reschedule my mother-in-law's appointment. I allowed myself a small smile. Dr. Marlowe could wait all she wanted. I wasn't coming. Not today. Not ever. Kenya's flight was landing at noon. Isaac, James, and Patricia were coming at 2. And then we'd see what happened. I was in my room when I heard Kenya's voice. Hello? Anyone home? I opened my door to see my daughter standing in the hallway, suitcase in hand, looking around with barely concealed fury. She'd cut her hair since I'd last seen her. Natural now, in beautiful coils that framed her face. She looked strong, powerful. She looked like she was ready for a fight. Kenya! Vanessa appeared from the living room, shock evident on her face. What are you doing here? Ethel didn't mention, didn't she? Kenya's smile didn't reach her eyes. Mom, there you are. I've missed you so much. She strode past Vanessa and wrapped me in a hug that smelled like her coconut shampoo and felt like safety. Where's Darnell? Kenya asked, pulling back. At work, Vanessa said, still recovering from the surprise. He'll be home around 5. Perfect. We'll all have dinner together then, as a family. Kenya's emphasis on the word family was deliberate. Mom, why don't you show me your room? I want to catch up. In the privacy of my small room, Kenya looked around and her jaw tightened. This is where they have you sleeping? In what used to be Dad's office? It's not so bad. Mom, she took my hands. Stop. You don't have to pretend with me. This is terrible, and what they're doing to you is worse than terrible. It's criminal. Now tell me, are we still on track for this afternoon? 2 o'clock. Isaac, Patricia, and James are coming. And Darnell will be here? Vanessa will make sure of it. She thinks they're coming to look at the house as potential buyers. She's been complaining about needing to monetize the asset anyway. Kenya's expression hardened. Monetize the asset. She means your home. The home you've lived in for 40 years. She shook her head. I can't wait to see her face. Kenya, I need you to promise me something. What? No matter what happens, no matter what's said, Darnell is still your brother, and he's still my son. I don't want this to destroy our family completely. Kenya was quiet for a moment. Mom, he tried to have you declared incompetent so he could steal your house and your money. He was going to lock you in a memory care facility where no one would believe you. That's not family. That's betrayal. I know, but he's also the little boy I raised, the one who used to help his daddy in the garden, the one who cried at his father's funeral. That person is still in there somewhere. I have to believe that. Kenya sighed. You're a better person than me. But okay, I promise I'll remember he's my brother. That doesn't mean I'm going to go easy on him. I wouldn't expect you to. At 1:30, Vanessa gathered everyone in the living room. Barbara and Richard were there, looking curious. Tyler was sprawled on the couch, barely looking up from his phone. Jasmine sat in the corner, watching everything with intelligent eyes. All right, everyone, Vanessa announced. We're going to have some visitors this afternoon. Potential buyers for the house. Barbara looked startled. Buyers? I thought, it's just preliminary, Vanessa said quickly. Ethel has agreed that the house is too much for her to manage, and we're exploring options. We thought it might be wise to get it appraised, see what it's worth. I said nothing, just sat in my chair, Robert's old reading chair that Vanessa had tried to throw out but I'd rescued, and waited. When are they coming? Richard asked. 2 o'clock. I need everyone to be pleasant and accommodating. First impressions matter. Where's Darnell? I asked. I called him. He's leaving work early. Should be here by 2. Perfect. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock. Vanessa smoothed her hair and went to answer it, her realtor's smile already in place. Hello, you must be... Oh. Her smile faltered slightly as she took in the group at the door. Not just Isaac, but a professional-looking black woman in a suit, Patricia, and a distinguished gentleman in his 60s, James. And behind them, bringing up the rear with a look of quiet satisfaction on her face, was Dorothy. Good afternoon, Isaac said smoothly. I'm Isaac Miller, and this is Patricia Williams, James Crawford, and Dorothy Watson. We're here to discuss the property. Of course, please come in. Vanessa stepped back, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. This wasn't what she'd expected. They filed into the living room just as Darnell came through the back door. Sorry I'm late, He stopped, taking in the scene. Mom? What's going on? Kenya stood up from where she'd been sitting quietly. Hi, Darnell. Surprise. Kenya? What are you doing here? Supporting our mother. You remember her, right? The woman whose house this is? Darnell's eyes darted between Kenya, me, and the strangers in the living room. I don't understand. Why don't we all sit down? Patricia said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that made everyone automatically obey. We have some things to discuss. Once everyone was seated, or standing in Vanessa's case, since she looked too tense to sit, Isaac began. I've asked everyone to gather here today because there's been a significant change regarding this property. Mrs. Higgins, would you like to explain, or would you prefer that I do? All eyes turned to me. I took a deep breath. I've sold the house, I said simply. The silence that followed was deafening. Then everyone started talking at once. What? Darnell looked like he'd been slapped. You can't have, Vanessa started. When did this, Barbara began. That's impossible, Richard said firmly. Quiet. Patricia's voice cut through the chaos. Let Mrs. Higgins finish. I looked at my son, only at him. On Monday, September 18th, 2023, I sold this property to Mr. James Crawford for $582,000. The deed was recorded yesterday at 9:47 a.m. As of that moment, I no longer own this house. Mr. Crawford does. But you can't, Vanessa was stammering, something I'd never seen her do. We live here. We've made plans. We've invested. You've invested nothing, Kenya said coldly. This isn't your house. It never was. Darnell? I kept my eyes on my son. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Find out what? But his voice was weak. The rental agreement, Patricia said, pulling out a folder. The one you signed with Barbara and Richard Morgan on August 15th, 2023, charging them $2,800 per month to rent this property. A property you didn't own. You collected $11,200 from them in first and last month's rent plus security deposit. That's fraud, Mr. Higgins. Barbara had gone pale. Darnell, you said this was your house. You said your mother had signed it over to you. I was going to, Darnell started, but Vanessa cut him off. This is ridiculous. Ethel is clearly not in her right mind. We've been concerned about her cognitive decline, which is why we scheduled an appointment with Dr. Marlowe. Dr. Patricia Marlowe at Delaware Psychiatric Associates, Patricia interrupted. Yes, we know all about that appointment. The one where you planned to have Mrs. Higgins falsely declared incompetent so you could petition for guardianship and take control of her assets. I have a copy of your email to Dr. Marlowe right here. Would you like me to read it aloud? Vanessa's face went from pale to red. That was taken out of context. What email? Darnell looked at his wife. Vanessa, what is she talking about? The email where your wife described your mother as having memory lapses and confusion and being unable to care for herself, Patricia read from the document. None of which is true, as multiple medical professionals can attest. Mrs. Higgins is fully competent, which is why the sale of this property is completely legal and binding. How much? Kenya asked suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. How much did you steal from Mom? It's not just the $11,000 in fake rent. What else? Darnell looked at the floor. Vanessa's jaw was clenched so tight I thought her teeth might crack. Isaac pulled out another set of documents. Robert Higgins was a silent partner in Crawford Construction. When he died, his shares passed to Mrs. Higgins. Those shares generate quarterly dividends of approximately $23,000. For the past 18 months, those checks have been deposited into an account in Darnell Higgins' name. Total amount, $124,000. I felt the air leave my lungs. $124,000. Money that should have been mine, that Robert had earned, that Darnell had simply taken. I was managing it for you, Darnell said desperately. I was going to give it to you. You just what? Kenya's voice was shaking. You just needed it more? You just figured Mom wouldn't notice? You just decided that since Dad was dead, his money was yours? We have expenses, Vanessa said, lifting her chin. Do you know how much it costs to raise 2 children? To maintain a professional lifestyle? Darnell's salary alone isn't enough. So you decided to steal from his mother? Dorothy spoke for the first time, her voice cutting. From a widow who trusted her son? I trusted you, I said softly, looking at Darnell. When your father died, you promised you'd take care of me. You promised you'd help me with the finances, the paperwork, all the things Robert had always handled. And I believed you. Mom, Darnell's voice cracked. You were going to lock me in a memory care facility, I continued. You were going to tell doctors I was confused, incompetent. You were going to take everything your father and I built and throw me away like garbage. Your own mother. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Darnell said, and he was crying now, actually crying. Vanessa said, she said it would be better for you, that you'd be taken care of, that the house was too much. Don't you dare, Vanessa hissed at him. Don't you dare put this on me. You agreed to every bit of it. Because you told me, Darnell started, but she cut him off. I told you what you wanted to hear, that your mother was old, that she didn't need this house, that we deserved it more, and you believed it because it was convenient. The mask had finally slipped. Vanessa's face was ugly with anger now, all pretense of concern gone. You're a weak man, Darnell, she continued. Just like your father was weak, building bridges for other people while we lived in a 3-bedroom house in Dover. You could have been somebody, but you were too busy being humble and honorable, like your precious daddy. Don't you talk about Robert, I said, my voice hard. Don't you ever speak his name. Why not? He was a fool. He had opportunities, connections, but he was too ethical to take advantage of them. And look where it got him, dead at 64 with nothing to show for it but this house. He had everything to show for it, I said. He had integrity. He had respect. He had love. Things you'll never understand. James Crawford stood up then, silent until now. I think we've heard enough. Mrs. Higgins, would you like me to explain the situation going forward? I nodded, not trusting my voice. As of yesterday, I am the legal owner of this property, James said calmly. That makes everyone currently residing here tenants at will, and as of this moment, I'm terminating that tenancy. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises. That's 3 days, until Saturday, September 23rd at 2 p.m. 3 days? Barbara looked panicked. We can't find a place in 3 days. We sold our house. All our furniture is in storage. That's not Mr. Crawford's problem, Patricia said. You paid rent to someone who had no authority to collect it. That's between you and Darnell, but you cannot stay here. This is insane, Vanessa said. We'll fight this. We'll contest the sale. Ethel clearly wasn't in her right mind. Mrs. Higgins was evaluated by Dr. Raymond Foster, a board-certified psychiatrist, on September 17th, 2 days before the sale. He found her to be fully competent, with excellent cognitive function. His report is already filed with the court. You have no grounds to contest anything. Patricia's smile was razor-sharp. You planned this, Vanessa said, looking at me with something like hatred. You've been planning this the whole time. No, I said. I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. Jasmine, who'd been sitting silent in the corner, suddenly stood up. She walked over to me, tears streaming down her face. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I knew things were wrong, but I didn't know it was this bad. I pulled her into my arms. It's not your fault, baby. None of this is your fault. Can I? She looked up at me. Can I still see you? After we leave? Of course you can. You're always welcome in my life, Jasmine. Always. Tyler had finally looked up from his phone. He stared at his parents with something like disgust. This is messed up, he said. Like really messed up. Grandma's always been nice to us and you were just gonna… What? Lock her up? Steal her money? He stood up. I'm gonna stay with my friend Marcus until we figure out where we're living. I can't even look at you right now. He walked out. Jasmine followed him, but not before giving me one more hug. The children are welcome to take whatever they need, I said. Their clothes, their personal things. I won't keep anything that belongs to them. How generous, Vanessa spat. More generous than you deserve, Kenya shot back. Darnell was still sitting, head in his hands. Mom, he said finally. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know how it got this bad. It started small, just the dividend checks. I thought I'd pay you back. And then Vanessa said, he looked up, his face wet with tears. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can't fix this, but I need you to know. I love you. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I do. I looked at my son, at the man who'd betrayed me, who'd tried to steal my life. And I saw the little boy he'd been, the one who'd climbed into my lap when he had nightmares, the one who'd held my hand at his father's funeral. I know you do, I said softly. But love without respect is nothing, Darnell, and love without integrity is worse than nothing. Your father taught you better than this. I know. You have 3 days, Patricia said, all business now. After that, the sheriff will be called and you will be removed. I suggest you use the time wisely. And Mr. Higgins? Mrs. Higgins has decided not to press criminal charges for the fraud and theft. Yet, Kenya interjected. Yet, Patricia agreed. But if you make any attempt to contact your mother, harass her, or contest this sale, she will reconsider. The evidence we have is more than sufficient for criminal prosecution. Am I clear? Crystal, Vanessa said icily. One more thing, I said, standing up. The $124,000 from the dividend checks, I want it back. All of it. You have 30 days to return it, or I will press charges. That's the only mercy you're getting from me. We don't have it, Vanessa said. We spent it. Then you'd better figure out how to get it, Kenya said. Sell your car, get a loan. I don't care, but you will pay our mother back every penny you stole, or you will go to jail. Your choice. 6 months later, I woke up in my new home, the guest house that James had built on the property where Robert's old tool shed used to be, and smiled before I even opened my eyes. The morning light was streaming through the windows that faced the bay. I could hear the water, the seagulls, the familiar sounds that had been the soundtrack of my life for 40 years. I was home. Not in the big house. That belonged to James now, and he'd restored it beautifully, keeping Robert's roses, keeping the bones of the place while making it his own. But I was on my land, in my space, living the life I'd fought for. The guest house was perfect. 2 bedrooms, one for me, one for guests when Kenya visited, which she did every month now. A small kitchen where I could make my grits and my cornbread and my collard greens. A living room with windows on 3 sides and enough space for my records, finally rescued from the garage. And a porch. A beautiful porch with a view of the bay, where I sat every morning with my coffee, just like I used to. I made my coffee now and went outside. The April morning was cool but warming, the water sparkling in the early light. James was already up. I could see him in Robert's rose garden, tending the plants with the same care Robert had shown. We'd become friends, James and I. We had dinner together twice a week, shared gardening tips, talked about our late spouses and our children and our lives. He was good company, respectful of my space, but always there if I needed anything. And 3 weeks ago, he'd introduced me to his friend Walter Johnson, a 72-year-old retired teacher, a widower, a gentleman with kind eyes and a love of jazz music. We'd been to 2 concerts together and had a 3rd planned for next weekend. I wasn't looking for romance, but I wasn't opposed to it either. At 68, I was learning that life could still surprise you, Dorothy called as I was finishing my coffee. Morning, Ethel. How's paradise? Peaceful, I said and meant it. How are you? Same old, same old. Hey, I got a call yesterday from a woman in a situation similar to what yours was. Her daughter-in-law is trying to move her out of her house. I gave her Patricia's number. That okay? More than okay. I'm glad we can help. Because that's what Patricia, Isaac, and I had started doing. Helping other elderly people who were being financially abused by their own families. We'd helped 4 people in the last 6 months get out of similar situations, recover their assets, reclaim their lives. Robert would have been proud. My phone buzzed with a text. It was Jasmine. Can I come visit this weekend, Grandma? I miss you. I smiled and texted back. Of course, baby. I miss you too. Jasmine came to see me every few weeks. Tyler had visited once, awkward but sincere. They were good kids who'd been caught in their parents' ugliness. I wasn't going to punish them for that. Kenya called every Sunday, sometimes twice a week. She was planning to move back to Delaware next year, wanted to be closer to me. I missed too much time, she said. I'm not missing any more. As for Darnell and Vanessa, I'd heard they'd divorced 3 months ago. Vanessa had moved to Philadelphia for a new job. Darnell was living in a small apartment in Dover, working and slowly paying back the money he'd stolen. He'd returned $47,000 so far. Only $77,000 to go. He'd sent me a letter last month. I hadn't opened it yet. Maybe I would. Maybe I wouldn't. I was still deciding if I had forgiveness in me or if I even needed to forgive him to move forward. But I wasn't consumed by anger anymore. Wasn't consumed by anything except the peace of living my life on my own terms. I heard James's voice from the garden. "Ethel, come look at this rose. I think it's one of Robert's originals." I stood up, coffee cup in hand, and walked toward the garden, toward my friend, toward the flowers my husband had planted, toward the morning that was all mine. I'm Ethel Marie Higgins. I'm 68 years old, and I learned that at my age, the greatest power you have is the power to say no. No, you can't take my home. No, you can't control my life. No, you can't make me disappear. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to be erased. The greatest victory wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice, though justice felt good. The greatest victory was standing on my porch, looking at my bay, drinking my coffee, and knowing that I was exactly where I belonged, free.